Hello everyone, welcome to Two Real Reviews. Two reviewers with no agenda. We just want to tell you if a movie is good or not. I'm Smeet Bass, and my partner in this endeavor is Purple Sage. Today I am reviewing MaXXXine, the third film in a horror trilogy directed by Ty West and starring Mia Goth. When I first saw X, I went in with no expectations. I thought, like most people, that A24 had started to become the champion for mid-budget movies. The studio had already released movies I liked like Tusk and The Witch and The Lobster and many others, so I was expecting a fun and low-budget slasher movie. I got way more than that and found one of the most insightful slashers I'd seen in a very long time. With its sequel Pearl, or I should say prequel Pearl, I didn't even watch the trailer at the end of X because it had already gotten out that there was a trailer at the end of that film, so I didn't want to spoil myself. I watched Pearl on opening day, and I genuinely thought Mia Goth deserved some sort of awards nomination. Not that any of that means anything, but I really wanted her work recognized because it was that good. Now comes MaXXXine, and just like Pearl, I did not watch any of the trailers or see any publicity for the film. I wanted to go in completely cold. I was a little worried that they wouldn't be able to make the character of MaXXXine as intriguing as Pearl, so I did have some slight hesitation. Let me start this review by saying that my words were just spelled in the first 90 seconds. This film is the best parts of Scorsese and mostly De Palma and even a little Hitchcock. I'll say no more. If X was a slasher with great characters and Pearl was a great character study done during the 19 teens, then MaXXXine is a character study done for the 1980s struggling movie star. The movie begins with her auditioning for a movie, and the aspect ratio during her tryouts switches to a 4:3 ratio to let us know the technology that was available to everyone at this time. And you believe it. The set design, clothing, and view of the movies lets you know that you're in Hollywood, and not in an exploitative, hey kids, remember to go to Universal Studios kind of way. This movie is in Hollywood, but it does not glamorize it. MaXXXine has friends, but most of them are stepping stones to achieving her dream of making it big in Hollywood. That doesn't make them bad characters. In fact, she has a friend who works at a video store right next to her apartment, and he really likes MaXXXine. He isn't trying to get in her pants or give her any of that stereotypical boy stuff. He likes her as a person and wants her to succeed. That's a pretty good relationship dynamic. It isn't really required to have seen X or Pearl to understand this movie. It is a good entry point, but I will say that if you haven't seen X or Pearl, I highly recommend them both. MaXXXine is a standalone story that addresses the other two films but doesn't beat you over the head with it. It does a little at the end, but not too bad. Mia Goth in this movie is even more captivating than she was in Pearl. In Pearl, we were watching someone who had to keep a smile on her face all the time, no matter what happens, and wants to be a big star. In MaXXXine, we see what Pearl had to go through as she achieved her dream. This movie is raw and in your face with its reality of Hollywood. Sort of like if In the Heat of the Night with Sidney Poitier, it was done in Hollywood. Similar to that kind of a character study. Since MaXXXine has survived a slasher movie, she won't back down from anyone. She's a smart character, and you root for her the whole way. It's another amazing performance by Mia Goth. You believe her, you follow her, and you understand her pains, both current and present. We don't need to know about the past of MaXXXine per se, or what drives her. You know what she's thinking all the time, so we don't need to get fully inside of her head. It's not that kind of character study. I know some people would want more insight into her past, but that's really kind of irrelevant here. We're here to see how she handles the situation she's in. It's more of a study of what someone would do in this kind of situation, and you do believe it. If you're looking for a routine horror film with lots of violence and murders, this movie might disappoint you. It has all the stuff that you come to expect from a horror film. Stabbings, chases, and blood in many places, and all the good stuff. But we're here to get our story on. This film gave me definite vibes of Taxi Driver and Bad Lieutenant in terms of staying with its theme of grit. And this is how people really are. It's not cynical like some people believe those two films are. It's just real. She's an actress trying to live in Hollywood. This is what it's like for those people. Or at least I assume it is. I believed everything that happened to almost all the characters. If I had one problem with the film, is that there has to be something surrounding MaXXXine's pursuit of stardom, and unfortunately, since it's a horror film, it has to be a serial killer subplot. It's handled mostly well, and has some great characters involved in it, such as Kevin Bacon, but the reveal at the end of the movie was kind of weak, and it took the movie into a genre that it didn't need to be in. I know that Ty West specializes in horror, but I believe he has cracked the glass ceiling now and can tell personal stories within the confines of a horror film, and doesn't have to rely on cliches. This movie is so great that it didn't need the serial killer plot at all. Also, there's a scene very early on where appears she's being mugged by a guy, and she quickly turns the tables on him. It reminded me of Hooks from Police Academy for some reason, but that's not the film's fault. I just have a very active imagination. If you want violence, you will get a ton of it in the second half of the film. But if you want a slow burn, raw, and in-your-face horror film with a lot of noir elements that only uses the gore when it makes sense for the story, then you are in for something special. This may be Ty West's most ambitious film. He and Mia Goth have quickly risen to be on the same level as other legendary duos like Carpenter and Jamie Lee Curtis. This movie's on that level, but it doesn't have the insight of Hurl or the gore of X. It falls kind of in the middle. I still think this is a wonderful trilogy overall, and I recommend MaXXXine as a fun summer noir film with horror as its backdrop. If you want a rating, I would give it a B+ or 3 3/4 stars out of 4. That's it. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back tomorrow with a review of Beverly Hills Cop Axel F.